All right, so we're diving into boat riggers this time.
Okay.
You sent over some RoleCatcher guides on this,
Right.
and honestly, way more interesting than I thought going in.
Yeah.
I kind of had this like image of just someone who, I don't know, like professionally ties knots, but it's a lot more involved.
It is. It really
It's
is.
a lot more than tying knots, yeah.
So you're the one with the actual experience here.
I do. I have some experience with it, yeah.
What would you say to someone who, like me, kind of had that initial, oh, it's just knots?
Well, it's funny you say that because I think a lot of people have that initial impression. They
Right.
picture, someone with maybe a nautical themed t-shirt out on a dock somewhere.
Right.
But
Exactly.
it's so much more than that. It's a really fascinating blend of technical skills and craftsmanship.
Okay.
You've got to understand electrical systems. You've got to know how engines work.
So there's that mechanical side.
Absolutely. You're working with your hands
Yeah.
constantly. I was going to say, and the precision involved too.
Oh, absolutely. Precision is key.
Because it's not like you can just, slap things together and hope for the best.
No, no, no. We're talking about people's safety here, the reliability of the vessel.
Exactly.
It all comes down to the boat rigger getting it right.
So it's kind of like you're, I don't know, the architect of a boat's nervous system almost.
I love that analogy. You're spot on.
It's like all the wiring, the connections, it all has to be working in sync.
Exactly. And if one part fails, the whole system can be compromised.
Okay, now that makes it way more interesting than I initially thought.
Right. It's a lot more than meets the eye.
So let's break this down a bit.
Yeah.
When we say day to day for a boat rigger, what does that actually look like?
Well, every day is different, that's for sure.
Okay, but just in general.
Right. So you might walk into the shipyard and you've got a brand new engine sitting there gleaming in the morning sun.
I'm picturing like a toolbox the size of a small car at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not far off. Boat riggers have a tool for everything.
So walk me through it. What's like the first thing you tackle with this new engine?
Okay, so let's say we're talking about a 300 horsepower outboard motor.
Okay, getting serious.
Right. That's a lot of power to handle,
Yeah.
and it all has to be harnessed perfectly. So first things first, you're not just dropping this onto the back of the boat.
Right, there's got to be a process.
It's about precision alignment with the drive shaft and making sure everything lines up perfectly.
Because if it's off, even a little.
Oh, you'd know it.
Really?
That boat would be shaking itself apart, vibrating like crazy.
Okay, so that's the engine.
Right, but that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Oh, right. There's what? Gauges, electrical?
Exactly. You've got your gauges, making sure they're all hooked up correctly and giving accurate readings. Then there's the lights, batteries, fuel systems.
It's like you're putting together, I don't know, a high-stakes game of Tetris, but instead of blocks, you're fitting together the pieces that keep a vessel running.
And safe. Let's not forget about safety.
Which is where those pre-delivery inspections come in, right?
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher really emphasized those for good reason.
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be a big part of the job.
It's crucial. Before any boat goes out on the water, a boat rigger does a complete walkthrough, testing every single component.
Wow, so you're like the last line of defense, making sure everything is.
Exactly. You want to be sure it's not just installed, but installed correctly, safely, to the highest standard.
Because I imagine being miles offshore and realizing something wasn't hooked up right.
Not a good situation. And that's what we're trying to prevent.
So you really are responsible for people's safety out there on the water.
It's a big responsibility, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
I can imagine knowing that you've played a part in making sure those boats are running smoothly and safely.
Absolutely. It's about taking pride in your work, knowing that you've done everything possible to ensure a safe and enjoyable experience for everyone on board.
So, okay, with all that riding on a boat rigger's shoulders,
Yeah.
you can't just be, like, good with a wrench, right?
It takes a special kind of person.
What would you say, like, top 3 skills someone needs to even think about this career?
Top 3. That's tough. There's so many.
But just the essentials, the must-haves.
Okay. Well, first off, that manual dexterity you mentioned.
Right, being comfortable with tools.
More than comfortable, you practically have to be one with the tools.
Wow.
It's not just knowing how to use them, but knowing when and why to use a specific tool for a specific job.
So it's that, like, deep understanding of how things work together.
Precisely.
Okay, what about, because you mentioned electrical systems earlier, is that where the second skill comes in?
It definitely ties in.
Because it's not just about connecting wires, I'm guessing.
No, you've got to be able to read and understand those, complex technical diagrams.
Oh, like schematics and stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's almost like I don't know, being able to decode a secret language.
That's a great way to put it, because you're basically translating those diagrams into real-world connections, making sure everything's flowing correctly.
Okay, that's two. What about the third must-have skill?
This one's a little more, I guess you could say mental.
Okay.
It's that ability to troubleshoot, to think on your feet when things inevitably go wrong,
Right, because RoleCatcher mentioned that a lot.
and for good reason.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast.
So you're not just following instructions blindly. You have to be able to.
You have to think critically, diagnose problems, and come up with solutions, often under pressure.
It's like being, I don't know, a detective almost, but for boats.
I like that. You've got to piece together the clues, figure out what's causing the issue, and then come up with a fix.
Okay, so you need steady hands, a sharp mind, and probably a good amount of patience, too.
Patience is a virtue, especially in this line of work.
Because I imagine things don't always go according to plan.
Right. Let's just say there are going to be days where you question your sanity.
But then there are those moments, those aha moments, where it all comes together.
Exactly. And that feeling, that sense of accomplishment, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
So it's not just a job, it's like problem solving on a whole other level.
It's a craft, a skill, an art form, even.
And it sounds like those ABYC certifications RoleCatcher kept mentioning.
Right, right.
Those are kind of big deal in this world.
They're huge. That's your stamp of approval, your proof that you know your stuff.
So break it down for someone who's never even heard of ABYC before. What does that even stand for?
Yeah, so ABYC, it stands for the American Boat and Yacht Council.
Okay.
And they're basically the gold standard when it comes to boat safety and construction standards.
Gotcha. So it's like getting your rigging skills certified by the experts.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And having those certifications on your resume, it speaks volumes to potential employers.
It's like saying, hey, I'm not just some guy with a wrench. I know what I'm doing.
Precisely. It shows you're serious about the craft, that you've invested the time and effort to learn from the best.
So for someone starting out, that's something to aim for, those certifications.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic investment in your career.
Yeah.
And it shows that you're committed to maintaining the highest standards of safety and quality.
Which at the end of the day is what it's all about, right? Making sure those boats are safe and seaworthy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's about taking pride in your work and knowing that you're playing a vital role in keeping people safe out there on the water.
And those demands, though, like physically, I mean, you're on a boat.
Yeah.
Probably not the most ergonomic workspace.
You could say that again.
RoleCatcher did not sugarcoat it.
No, they were pretty upfront about that, and for good reason.
Like, how much of this job is just, like, pure muscle dealing with heavy stuff?
Well, you're not going to be bench pressing engines or anything.
Okay, good.
But it is a physically demanding job. You're on your feet a lot. Sometimes you're in tight spaces, awkward positions.
Right, crawling around.
Exactly. And, yeah, there's some lifting involved, equipment, materials.
And then there's, well, the elephant in the room, the weather.
Ah, yes. Mother Nature, always a factor.
There's a sunny day on the water. That's idyllic.
Oh, yeah, those days are great.
But I'm guessing a good chunk of this job isn't happening on those days.
You'd be surprised, actually.
Really?
We try to schedule around the worst of it, obviously, but sometimes you got to, dance with the rain a little.
So, what, you're rewiring a circuit board in a downpour?
Maybe not a downpour, but yeah, you learn to adapt.
Okay, that takes some serious dedication, I have to say.
It's all part of the job, and for those who love it, it's a small price to pay.
So it sounds like to really thrive in this role, you need more than just skills. You need a certain, I don't know, a certain grit.
Oh, absolutely. You got to love the work, the challenge, even the unpredictable nature of it.
RoleCatcher used the phrase built-in resilience.
That's a good way to put it. You're going to face setbacks, unexpected problems. You got to be able to roll with the punches.
And still deliver, right?
Exactly. Deadlines don't disappear just because the wind picks up.
So you're not just rigging boats, you're rigging your own, like, internal resilience.
I love that analogy. You're constantly problem solving, not just with the boats, but with your own approach to the work, to life even.
That's pretty deep, actually, for boat rigging.
Oh, it's a deep profession once you get into it.
I'm realizing that, yeah, it's not just knots. It's like this whole hidden world.
And it's a rewarding one for the right person.
Well, thanks to you, and thanks to these RoleCatcher guides,
My pleasure.
we've gone from boat rigging, what's that, to, like, a deep appreciation for this whole craft.
It's been fun talking shop.
And you know what else struck me? Going through this, there's room to grow.
Oh, absolutely. We've only scratched the surface here.
Right, like you start as a boat rigger, but RoleCatcher mentioned other paths.
Yeah, like you could specialize, get into high-performance rigging, racing yachts, that kind of thing.
Or even take those skills, go beyond boats.
Exactly. There's stage rigging for concerts, theaters, even construction, using those same principles on a larger scale.
So the possibilities are, well, kind of endless.
Pretty much, if you've got the skills and the drive, the sky's the limit. Or maybe the horizon's the limit, in this case.
I like that. So for anyone listening who's intrigued by all this, what's the one thing, the takeaway, the kernel of wisdom we want them to sail away with?
I'd say don't underestimate yourself. If you're curious, if you enjoy working with your hands, if you like figuring things out, give boat rigging a shot.
It might just surprise you.
It might just be the perfect fit. And, even if you don't end up rigging boats for a living, the skills you learn, the problem solving, the resilience, that's going to serve you well no matter what you do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
Likewise, always happy to talk boats.
And to our listeners, until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, because sometimes the most rewarding journeys take us a little off the beaten path.